Comparing quantities to make sure the quantities were similar, to make sure nothing was extremely skewed. Quantities were very close between the four, so we were happy to see that. So now we go back to the options. Option A and option D, I'm going to tell you right now. Option A is an 802.11 AC deployment. That is the newest technology. A and D all encompass those items in the RFP that for the section 3 that was optional. They don't break it out. It's not, I mean, it's in their product. That's the value of the product. They're a one-stop shop. So they don't have a piecemeal part. You can't get this, and this for our needs. I think we want to put it in, find out what our needs are first, and then for that. Vendor B and C do just that. They offer the solution, and then they offer the tools separately. So I highlighted that on your guys' sheet, the kind of price across the board comparing just that, right? I can't take out the what A offers, A and D offer over B and C in their product, regardless. That you can't opt out to buy. If that makes sense. Is everyone following me on that?
No. Sorry, I meant what?
So
You got are A, B, C, and D all the same bids?
they are, yes,
Are they all conforming?
yes.
Okay.
And that's what I was saying. We went through parts and quite counts, and they are all very similar. And if you look at the total numbers on the bottom, and this, I just want to point this out. Aside from vendor B, if you took the credit from vendor C and added it up, you're pretty close. You're within $3,000 to $4,000 between all vendors, between A, B, or A, C, and D. The difference is the building and the modulation. But also just a note, vendor E, we sent it out, we had no response from the bids. So I'm open for questions. What do you, I don't know if I said enough, not enough.
They're all total comparable stuff. If you said vendor A is the newest stuff or all three?
Vendor A is 802.11 AC. It is the newest technology.
So others are in?
Yeah, they're in, exactly. Yep.
What, the highlighted figures are what?
The highlighted numbers are the hard costs. That would be the total
For what we're
on,
at?
and that's why I was saying I can't subtract out section 3 of A and D, but that is, I mean, you don't have, I mean, that's what it is. So to get a wireless infrastructure in place, that highlighted line is the line to get going.
Plus the switches. Now originally
That's
last time we
including
came
the
and
switches, yeah.
and spoke to us, we were just talking about the access points and the controller, right?
That was the E-rate of Washington. Oh, are you talking E-rate of Washington? We've had a lot of conversations in the last four.
I thought
the one that
switches
included all the
was kind
switches,
of
too.
phase 2.
No, it was adding density and capacity
Okay.
was phase 2. And this is the heavier at Hayes High and every other room everywhere else. And we can add capacity as needed.
But do we know that will fix everything? Because if it doesn't, and we've got to double up in the other buildings, what's the cost of that?
I'm assuming we won't have to double up in the other buildings because as the one-to-one initiative moves forward, we'll be able to utilize dual technologies, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. So one radio will be able to double our capacity. We don't have that right now. We have 2.4 only.
But if we could do that, why don't we just do every other in the high school too?
Because they use it nonstop all day, and to support like seminar time, GPS, they just have the user capacity that we can't do every other classroom and sustain. I mean, there's 24 per classroom, right? So if you do that, you're splitting 50 students per access point, 2.4 or 5 gig. I mean, it would handle it, it wouldn't, but it wouldn't be ideal.
So, no, go ahead.
Are you recommending one of these vendors? Is there one that you like better than the other?
I'm recommending vendor C at this time. That's my recommendation because I think that we can definitely build with it, and we have the tools in place that we can continue to build off of,
Right.
put in place
So you're recommending just the 183 right
for
now?
right now. But it's not, so you have to take off the $10,000 trade-in. So that's the other part below. They're giving a $10,000 trade-in for all of our old network equipment. So,
Which is the best.
so it really takes it, so it really takes it down to 173,652.
What's the grand total at the bottom represent?
That grand total is to compare A, B, C, and D completely across the board, because vendor A and D do not have the option to, like if you see B and C, they have the options for section 3, that was separate. It's not included in their product like A and D.
You would ask
We asked for
additional
additional
bid on that.
for the network tools and what we talked about at the retreat. And A and D do not have the ability to break that out. So to compare apples to apples,
We're not approving it, but that's what it would cost.
that's,
So you're just asking to do what the highlighted number is, the 183,652.
yes. And it's really 173,652 because of the $10,000 trade.
But now,
Well, but then we have the installation cost, right?
Which is 48, yeah, you're right. So it's really one. Sorry. I kept trying to put my calendar in mine and it kept blowing up on me, so.
so in your 3-year plan,
Mhm.
what does this accomplish and what's left for the first year?
It really accomplishes the 3-year plan the first year. I mean, this was it. I mean, next year's servers.
For infrastructure.
Yeah, the network tools I put in there, that was one of the ones that we wanted. It wasn't a requirement, but it's something that we wanted to be able to have pricing on and be able to refer back to.
And servers are going to be how much next year? Kind of guess, right?
I will guesstimate it. I'm actually working on it right now. It's around 100. It's around, not 100, but it's around 70,000.
Okay.
But, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong, you've got May 20th to August 1st was wireless infrastructure, and then the July 2014 through June 2015, you got firewalls, phone system, Leo.
That's everything for next school year. That's starting in July. So I'm just trying to address what we have left to do before next school year. So those are the things that need to still be done next year. We still have the power school upgrade to do this year, this summer before school starts. So to answer your question, we have power schools upgrade and the infrastructure. Those are the have-to-haves.
So the power tools, you're saying we don't need those?
Well, I didn't make it a requirement in the RFP because of, if it's not in the budget, we weren't going to be able to purchase it now. So I stayed, but there was a budgeted amount in capital outlay prior to me being in this position.
And
So,
what was that amount?
I believe it was 193.
Is that right, Tracy? Technology for, I think.
190.
Network upgrade was 190, and we paid for the leases that are up now, that was 393.
What's section 3, Brian?
Section 3 is the network monitoring net flow. It's the network vision, right, to be able to see what's going on, more troubleshooting, be able to do more deep packet inspection, look at what our traffic's doing, where are people going. Gives us just another way to troubleshoot and better visual.
What do we have right now? Or
Nothing. We don't have anything.
Is that the part that would let you know when the machines are being used?
Mhm.
So that's a fairly important piece if we're going to spend a bunch of money.
It is. But you got to put yourself in my shoes too. We have a budget amount that's in outlay that I think I'm trying to work with right
Right.
now. So that's why I had it separately.
Can you add that later?
Yeah, it's all, that's why I asked for it to
Is
be.
it a separate device or is it software?
It's software on, you either buy hardware or run it virtually. Either one is probably supported.
Is there varying levels of that amount, or it's all or nothing?
There's
16,000 to get it.
multiple, there's 3 or 4 line items. multiple things. We just need to really take a deeper dive into it to figure out what is going to give us what we want.
Is that something that we're going to pay every year, or is that a one-time
It
hit?
would be a one-time hit, and then you normally pay, don't hold me to this, but 10% for maintenance a year. So there'd be a recurring charge, but it's normally a percentage of hardware
What about
or software.
the network core reconfiguration is part of what you're talking about?
That's just part of, that's part of this.
Power School?
Our school that needs to be done, but we're kind of waiting to get the pricing back on the virtualization that we already started to talk to vendors about.
And then Alert Solutions?
And that's, we're comparing vendors right now. Alert Solutions is a vendor, but we're making sure that they're the best fit for what we need.
And that's for just the text and the
Communication software.
So you're another, at least the network tools you had between 10 and 30 on here, and then you had another 12,000, so you got about another 40,000 of expenditures that you still think we need to do before August 1st, right?
But if you look at like the Power School, we might be moving more towards buying a host for the virtualization, and we'll use that server for the Power School server, and then we'll recycle it. And I hate to use the word recycle, but reuse it into the virtual environment once we're ready, so we're not duplicating efforts. So, and we might even start going virtualized right now. I mean, they're wanting Power School. We're on the teeter of doing 2 servers, an application and a database server for our number of students to provide for their recommendations. So we're looking at if we do the virtualization, we have to buy 2 servers that way. Virtualization, we make one purchase, and then we can break out as many servers as we need for that host. So that changes that number a little bit.
If we go one-to-one at each building, or if we go bring your own device with multiple platforms at each building, what sort of assurances do we have that this covers our needs for the next 5 years?
Knowledge.
Well, but
I mean, I can't tell you it's going to cover your needs because I don't know what the next clients are going to be, right?
barring a major change in technology over the next 5 years, how certain are you that this covers all of our needs?
I'm very certain. I mean, like I said, unless a device comes out that does not have the power output of, less than an iPad, right? Because that's where you start losing your device and having issues.
When would you look at buying the network monitoring then? Next year?
Yeah, once we get the system in place and start getting comfortable, and once we start getting students back, make sure we have it up and running, optimized, and then, because if not, you're going to get skewed data, right? So
Does that also do the web filtering, or is that separate?
separate, but it does more application monitoring where it tells you what is being used. So, and like I said, there's various products on that quote. We might need one or two, right? We might not need all three. We might do this and then add over the next year or 2 years.
Do they make a device that does most of those, or software?
Their software does, yeah, but there's other hooks, right? So it's always, if you don't get this one, you're not going to have this, and if you don't, so they always leave out that 10%, so you have to buy the next one.
Well, I know you've got that, the spam filter, which I assume does the web filtering too, is that right?
Yes.
And that's slated for next year, but do we have?
Our spam filter could go away because with the new Microsoft agreement that we're looking at, our exchange can go host it, and they do it all for you.
And I'm more worried about the content filtering, I guess, not the spam.
And the content filtering is not, they don't have a good solution for that right now, and to be SIPA certified and the policies, we have to have a Lightspeed or a Barracuda or somebody that specializes in that. So, but the good news is if we don't have to bundle spam and content filtering into one device, we can focus on a device at that point.
Well, I guess I was just asking, you've got 50 to 90 slotted for that in your next year's. Is that something we can carry that and kick that over and hope to achieve that with that next year or throughout the next year?
We could. I think our spam filtering is doing terrible, but our content filtering is good. I mean, to be honest, and that's why I'm looking at the exchange hosted.
Even, I mean, the kids aren't getting around it. That's.
No, not really. They can't. They get around because, we'll just use Google for an example. It's hard to always find every hook that they can go to get to somewhere. But if we have the time to start really screwing down a lot of that, then they won't be able to get through. And if we have the tools in place, it'll tell us how they're going. So we can just block at that rather than having to take our own tour around the internet.
Vendor A, the only one is a PoE plus switches, I assume, for the higher power outage?
Yes. Yep.
And I assume none of the rest of them were?
No.
So Brian, if I look at the numbers you provided at the retreat the last time, it looks like the big difference was the network tools was underestimated. Did you add out most 30,000? So was that just a matter of you digging in or getting updated RFP?
That was what I want. These are my options.
Okay, so we may still be
Yeah.
at 30,000.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not a purchase of that.
Okay.
There's multiple line items, 3 line items.
But what we
achieve
need to
that.
vote on now is really this total, the
Yeah.
wireless and switches total, right? Less installation, less the trade-in.
Brian,
Yes.
how much longer is the technology going to be good for, based on market averages versus AC? And is AC kind of the next
So-
generation?
I'm
Based on your experience.
going to answer this question in these terms. It's good as long as you need it to for capacity and for bandwidth. If we need more bandwidth, then we have to get into the next wave, right? AC, the next technology. It's offering up to gig, and wave 2 is offering 2 gig, and I mean the speeds are getting ridiculous. But speeds will not be achievable at a classroom away distance. So the design becomes a lot more compact and not as spread out, so you're not maximizing your access points. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you finished. Go ahead.
and to do that, we'd have a lot of bottlenecks. You'd be gig connected everywhere right now with either of these solutions. You'd have to start getting 10 gig backhauls, right? Interconnects, and at least backhaul to internet, right? So not 10 gig to internet, but to our aggregation switch.
What are the network tools going to cost next year? Yeah, I mean, you'd estimated 10 to 30, but it looks like 60 is probably more the number.
60 was what they came back with per the RFP.
Now, does vendor A and D have that included in there?
That's included in their product. So that's why I had to do the line item, the bottom line item to make it all comparable.
But that's what I was just asking. He said there's 3 different line items.
There's
going into that
multiple.
number, and it may be,
No,
that what we really need is only the 30,000 option.
And it could be something we never
So
purchased.
vendor A is AC, right?
Vendor A is AC.
Well, and I guess where I'm looking at this, and I told Dean this earlier today, until we have an entire budget that encompasses all the technology and everything, I'm probably not going to vote in favor of this. However, if you're going to vote in favor of it, it would almost seem to me, if you're going to spend $60,000 next year, which is a month away, is when next year starts, you could not approve this until after the first of the year, or approve it in components. I don't know if you could do vendor A that way, but you could tentatively approve it in your first meeting in July, but get vendor A, you've got the next level of technology, you get the tools, and you're at the bottom end of the spectrum. Now, I don't know legally if we can do that because of the bid specs, but if we can, it would seem to me that's almost the better option. But having said that, I'll vote against whichever direction we go, but that's, I think, from a financial standpoint, if you're going to spend 60 next year anyway, you're right at the threshold anyway, but if you go with C, you're getting current old technology, and A is going to get you into the new window.
But I agree, but to get to AC, we would have to double our drops. We'd have to rerun all our copper drops, double them up to get the benefits of it, to
So
get the
that's
capacity.
not a true price then.
No, that's why I'm saying, when you send sending an RFP out, right, I can't make them bid an end device, right? the requirement was X, they provided Z. Because that's their product. You can use it I mean, it's all backwards compatible, right? So every client brings down the next technology, right? So it works, but it's not, we're not ready for it. I mean, we don't have an AC client, and who knows what the next one-to-one's gonna be.
So vendor A is not really an option, is what you're saying?
I don't want to get hung up on the 0211 AC part of it. That's my statement on that.
Well, my only concern is if C is going to be a 2 or 3 year option, and it's going to be outdated, but A is going to be a 5-year option, and it's going to cost us $8,000 more now versus, and, I know that that's not everything, but the wiring that drops, we can do that ourselves. Now, it may be delayed depending on how quickly our staff can do it, but the wire's not greatly expensive.
I agree, but it's gonna double, we would have to double our switches at that point. The port density isn't designed for AC. The port density is designed based on our needs right now.
So that 144 becomes 280.
And it's not gonna quite double, but it's gonna be pretty high. Because it takes 2 ports per access point at that figure. So, I mean, there's gotchas any which way you go. That's why, but these are, vendor A and vendor D are all inclusive, and I thought it was important to get that view.
So really, vendor A is non-conforming then. Because if it's AC and it won't work unless we rewire it.
No, we won't want the benefits of AC. We won't get the benefits of AC. We'd have to rewire, and we'd have to get switches.
Let's assume we don't rewire, we put the technology in that's AC capable with what we have now.
It would still run 802.11n off,
You're
those
still
are
gonna have to run more wires to those though. Are you gonna be able to downclock those for the voltage and to power those, the wattage?
No,
So
but
15 watt versus 30 watt.
But your capacity, it ain't for power, it's for capacity, for AC. You got a gig, right? You got over a gig, so that's what I'm just saying, to get the true.
Well, but even then, if you only ran N on it now, you're halfway to the next step, right? I mean, you could gradually add switches to add capacity on those, like you could do the high school in a couple of years, where they'd have the faster speed, or, maybe one of the other schools needs it faster, but.
The other thing, so I'm throwing this out there for vendor A and D, not anything against them, but it's all internet-based, it's cloud. There's licensing fees, it's 5 years. So at 5 years, you have licensing fees for support, right? It's not, D is a lot different than A. D, you gotta pay every 5 years to continue to use it. A will work even if you discontinue support, but it's all cloud-based and licensed.
fees are?
I can give them to you. It's roughly, I'll just use 20% of AP pricing, so around $16,000, $17,000.
Right now, and then again in 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, they all have support. I'm just letting you know that it's a cloud-based managed service.
To me, and again, I've made my point clear, but it almost seems like there's a lot of questions that maybe need to be answered before we pull the trigger. Because, if you're talking about something you could put in now that with, modest increase later gets us to the whole next level of technology, which eventually will be going there anyway, unless we skip a step. But if we're staying on a 3 to 5 year window, AC is probably the next step, right?
That's logically, unless there's something better between.
But with the knowledge we have today, that's what's there.
AC is the latest technology.
How long between when N was unveiled versus AC's march onto the scene?
I don't know how long it's been in the market.
Difference?
No, not that much.
5 years.
Maybe 5 years. If that.
And the question I have about AC.
So we're running 802.11 AC system, but we're only running the N. At the end of 5 years, we wouldn't even be looking probably at AC anymore, then you'd probably be looking at what would be next if we were financially able to improve it.
The things I have,
AC almost seems like a move step.
it could be. I mean, I don't know the next one-to-one lease. I don't know if AC clients will be available. I don't know if we're gonna wanna pay for the clients of AC. So, I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, the cost, not just what the wireless is. You got device costs, you got chip costs, you got AC is in wave 1, wave 2 deployments. So there's 2 versions of it. Is this wave 1, is it wave 2, is wave 3 gonna be better? I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm kind of not a big fan of building this around 802.11ac right now, because there's a lot of unknowns. And I don't know if we need that capacity at this time.
So as the technology director, the person that we've charged with looking at everything that we have, your recommendation is vendor C. You recommend it, it's a great platform for us to build upon. Financially, you think it's the best benefit, and for where we want to be in 5 years, you're comfortable with its operating abilities.
Yes, it's definitely scalable and it can get us where we want to go.
Okay.
But in 5 years, let's look at the AC argument, let's say it's that in 5 years it's outdated because Z is available. If we look at the logic we're doing today, we wouldn't buy Z because it's the latest and greatest and you don't want to be on the cutting or bleeding edge of that, so you'd be looking at AC in 5 years. But we could already beat AC.
Depending on what kind of devices are, right? If the chipset of, if 802.11z came out and wasn't already ratified.
But the reality of it is, no matter what device comes out, I mean, they've got to make it somewhat backwards compatible, because in business, people aren't, IBM's not going to redo their entire company because there's a new tablet out or something that wants to use something different. They're going to have to make it conform to either AC or N or...
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like 5 gigahertz is 5 gigahertz. And that's why I say with AC, it's really capacity, right? I can build you capacity with more access points. Turn down power, add more access points. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time of designing wireless networks and designing networks.
You could accomplish the benefits of AC on your own if you wanted to.
Not necessarily through a radio to the gig, but you can add the capacity and give everyone the bandwidth that they need. We're talking a gig. Yeah, I mean, a gig of data is a lot of data. Everyone has cell phone plans, right? What do you use on your cell phone? Put it in perspective. A gig's a lot of data. That's internet, right?
Okay, what concerns me is that, if that's the better technology and we want to be at the forefront, that's one thing. But it sounds like to go with vendor A, we've got at least a licensing fee of $16,000, and we've now got potentially a doubling of the switch cost, plus a wiring cost, right?
But yeah, we do that.
But those are costs you're going to expend in 5 years.
In AC
Right,
regardless.
but 5 years, I mean, I think from a technology standpoint, we may be doing something different anyway, right? I mean, I don't think, relative to technology, I'm not sure we can last 5 years. I mean, that was what your
We
message
can't do
was
it.
the other night.
Yeah, I mean, it's changing.
I
Well,
mean,
it's 7 on the existing stuff.
I know.
But it was sold to us that it would upgrade, but it didn't.
But even if we wanted vendor A, I don't think we can afford it. We have 190,000 budgeted. Vendor C puts us at 178. We'd be way over even with what's here, much less these other costs we've talked about. So, I mean, it sounds like we can't afford vendor A,
In 15 days, you can.
but we haven't even discussed the other capital outlay.
Well, I understand. I mean, that may not work with that, but it's, anyway, I just throwing it out there because it seems like if you can spend less money now, or a little more now, and save a bunch of money
But I don't think
later.
it's a little more, that's not what I'm hearing.
Well, but 16,000 in 5 years is not that much.
No, but the
144,000
doubling of the
is.
switch cost
Right.
and the wiring,
Right, but if you assume you're going to spend 250 in 5 years, it's not that much.
yeah, that seems like a gamble with technology. I mean, I don't know if we can bank on what we're gonna be spending in 5 years.
What was the actual dollar figure we had budgeted?
190 for infrastructure.
200.
And also, I'm just gonna let this out there as well, if the E-rate does go through for Washington, we would be taking an additional 84 or 69 off of back.
8,400.
8,400. Because we would buy those access points under the E-rate that we submitted, so that would be an additional.
What about that server?
We would not, we could still do it, but being now we're going to do some modifications to make that work. I don't know if those modifications would be necessary at this point.
What server is that?
The controller.
Controller.
I know you meant it.
So you wouldn't do it through Washington?
I wouldn't do it, right now we wouldn't, I mean, it was done that way to get everything going. We could still do it that way if we wanted to. It just makes a change, right? The migration is to move everything to head in to our aggregation location to make our network more redundant, rather than everything going out to Hayes High and be a bottleneck out there to come back. We're trying to segment our traffic to send it where it needs to go at the head end. So that's one of the, that's that network, that part of the network overall that's on there that is not, has no line, no budget.
Is this something you want?
Well, yeah, we kind of got out of kilter. We probably should have had a motion, so I guess that we need to, there was a presentation, and then, yeah, we should have been to the motion side. So do we have a motion?
I make a motion to go with Brian Renn's recommendation, vendor C for 183 west and plus 4,800.
Minus 10, plus 4,800.
That's it.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Patterson, seconded by Board Member Rankin to accept vendor C's recommendation about the Section 3. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do we have any discussion?
You think on the section 3, you think you can get what you want for the district for less than 69,000?
I think it might not even be vendor-specific tools. It could be somebody that they're specializing in that. We just asked so we knew what the vendor product was. Not to say it necessarily has to be the vendor product. So we have some investigating and some looking into what best fits our needs and what we need right now.
Like equivalent like aftermarket stuff?
No, you just have,
Motorcycle?
you have all the, I'll just say it, you have vendor C that has their own product. Well, then you have people that specialize in, we'll just use NetFlow. Fluke has a NetFlow server appliance that you can send all your traffic through. It's just vendor neutral. They just make their own product.
And this will be ready to go by install.
So you'd be up and running or something?
We will.
Make that decision.
And again, with all your years of experience, you are comfortable with that plan
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
for our future, everything.
I don't doubt that this is needed, but I'm in the same boat. I'm going to vote against it until we have a budget in my hand, so I'm not going to continue approving things until we get it.
I mean, I guess, what do you want to see budget-wise? Because it
I
was
want to see the
budgeted
final budget. I understand that.
That's going to be August 25th.
I guess
It's going to be
until August 25th until I.
difficult to finish school and compare to start.
It just seems like we
until
continue to
August
approve
25th.
that. I'm not blaming you.
No,
I'm
I
just saying
understand,
it just
but-
seems like we continue, we're doing the exact same thing that the previous board did by going through to approve this stuff time after time.
Well,
And
It's in the capital outlay budget. It was last year, it wasn't spent. It's in there. Here's the capital outlay budget that she will go over. It's
Sure.
in there. Everything is there. And it's just a matter of trust, I guess, of whether you think any of us are doing our job or not. And we can put off and put off and put off, and by the time school starts, we're going to be so far behind, we're going to start just like I did with September.
Right.
We're going to be behind the eight ball the whole year. So,
Lance and Greg, I know that we had this discussion after the last expense, but I feel that coming into this new, these guys were the whistleblowers to stop the budget problems that had happened in the past. They've identified where we were short on the budget for the prior year and where we were going to be going in with shortfalls for the projected next year. So, I mean, I agree. It
But
would
we're
be
still
great from a
eight months
timing
out and don't have a
standpoint to
budget.
have that. No, I know, but based on the information they get from the state, I mean, it sounds like we can't.
The software will be available maybe this week for us to do the budget. And we went to the meeting Friday, and it's a process you go through, every school district in the state goes through, and we can't even access the software yet, so.
Okay. And I think what we're talking about and what we've been talking about was a working budget that we could discuss these items, but I feel like that's here. I mean, it is in this capital outlay.
I still have reservations about the general fund budget. I think there's some things that we'll discuss later on. But from the capital outlay side, this satisfies for a budget. Is this going to keep us from getting roofs replaced if we go forward with?
No, that's in there. It's
That's going to keep us from having reliable transportation.
roofing at $420,000 a year, which is more, transportation $300,000, which is more. Yeah, no, it's not. I mean,
one thing that I'm not pleased with this year by any means, with the exception of some of the positive changes, leadership, people in taking some new departmental head roles, the strength of our faculty and administrators to keep some things held together. Otherwise, it's been kind of a year of utter chaos and very little progress. In a lot of regards for the people that work every day here and for the students that go to school every day here, I would say there's been little benefit or progress for them. This is something that seems to touch on everything. We've heard it from the administrators, we heard it from the school, the students, we've heard it from the teachers. I'm definitely in support of making the upgrades here, and it has to be known. I mean, there's so much. I understand that, I don't mean this negative towards our community, but so few people seem to understand, or at least the ones that are vocal about it seem to understand the difference in these two funds. This capital outlay fund has nothing to do with us being able to retain teachers, hire more teachers, nurses, counselors. I mean, we're on TV tonight. I mean, I hope that is understood, because I got a phone call on my way to the board meeting tonight. If you approve this $160,000 or whatever, think about all the teachers you could have saved with that. So, I mean, there's still a common misnomer for it. But to sit back idly and not make any improvements when we have the budget for it, Drennan has been charged with doing everything that I think we have asked him to do with it. I think it's time to do something positive for our district, and I support it. Thanks for your hard work on this.
I just want to say, I think it's a really great step forward, because there has been a lot of chaos, and we got to look at this too. We've had, I don't know how many years of where we haven't had the budget. It's not going to be fixed in a year, but I mean, it's still really good that if we look at the tool we're giving the students and the teachers, that's what we're giving them. We've basically said we've cut positions, we're increasing class size. We're now going to give you a tool to speed that up so that you're not waiting 10, 15 minutes to access the website. Because a classroom full of 28 kids that are 14 years old, you're sitting there for 15 minutes, a lot can go into chaos fast. And so I'm definitely in support of this. I think it has been a long time coming. I don't know how many years I've been hearing of wireless upgrades, so I'm in favor of it.
Any further discussion? I just want to make one last point. And I know a lot of us talked about trust, and Dean, I think you and I kind of talked about this earlier, but one of the problems is I've been on here a long time, and I know we've got different people in leadership roles, and I think my relationship with this superintendent's better than it's been with any of the prior two. and I probably have a higher level of trust. But this is, I mean, we're spending $183,000. And the question I have to everybody is if this was your personal $183,000 coming out of your pocket, out of your wallet, would you just say, if I came to you and said, trust me, you just need to trust me and you're gonna spend this money, it's all gonna work out. You would never do that with your own money. I get what you're saying. It would be great to have everything back on track and positive. I think this has been a lot bigger changing process than what we anticipated it might be. But I think, for me, that's where I'm at. I'm not questioning anybody else's positions or viewpoints. I think that's what makes us a board, is 7 differing viewpoints. Sometimes we'll agree on things, sometimes we won't, but that's where I'm coming from, as an explanation to the people in this room watching at home. So that's why it's nothing personal against the people working here, and it's not that I don't trust you, it's just I think we've gone on a long time trusting, and I think that, I just...
But let me clarify. Lance, to your point, you've got to see a budget. But from a capital outlay standpoint, what changes from this in another month?
This is next year's
This is
estimates and all the information.
But if we're going to have that information in another month and it's pretty clear, then why can't we wait for another month to make this decision?
Because then we're not going to have
This
it
isn't-
ready for our teachers.
This isn't going to change.
And we've lived with it for this long, one more month's going to kill us.
Well, but what's going to change on these numbers?
I think in about 20 minutes, we're getting ready to make a change to capital outlay at our next special meeting, to how we handle that, which changes our ability to use that money in some other regards. So that could change greatly.
Well, then do we need to postpone this discussion? Can we have that discussion?
I don't know that you need to. I mean, I don't disagree with the concept that the money's budgeted, but, I mean, I understand it's there. I just want to...
Well, but you're saying you want to see a budget, and my question is, from a capital outlay standpoint, what changes from the document in front of me to another month that would change your decision on this?
I don't know. I want to see the final numbers.
What are your options for expenditures? That's the question. I mean, you can take this budget and say, yeah, that's what it is. It won't change if you don't. But if you have the option to spend that money over here or over there,
It's down.
yeah, I understand. But that's not all, though. There's other options there, that I've got some that I can add on to that list that we've considered in the past. And so, one of the issues is now we've got some rain, so I don't know if the field issues are as much, but as I read this, the upkeep of grounds may include converting a fescue field to Bermuda, which we discussed, but we couldn't do because it came out of the general fund. We couldn't before, but that would have significant water savings. And so there's some things like that could you do that? Maybe, maybe not. You could do it out of potentially this year's if you carried it over. But I don't want to get into the merits of what Brian, because that's not what my objection is, so.
No, I think he's done a good job. And I fully agree that we need to do this.
Isn't this more than just trust, though? Doesn't this represent the largest needs for our district? And those numbers aren't going to change unless the board would choose to swap something in and out. It's not like this is just a handshake and we're saying, hey, the numbers are going to work out, just wait, we're going to see them later.
Well, okay, let's go through it. I'll ask you the questions and we'll see what you know, since we're asking us about. But I'm just...
Answer my question first.
Okay.
Isn't this more than just trust?
It is. This is numbers. So the question is...
So it's more than trust?
Right. Now here...
Okay. But your statement earlier was everything is just based on trust. But now you're saying that this is technically more than trust.
Okay,
Right.
well, let's take a process check then, because
So-
we're currently in discussion on the infrastructure bid, okay? So we either need to
Well, no,
table
but the
that,
question
or-
is you don't have all the numbers for next year, which is what this represents. And so, and we're going to talk about those. I know they're coming up because I've looked at the agenda stuff, but those all factor into this. And so, we haven't talked about those. Those, after we talk about them, may be exactly what we're looking at,
Well,
but
then I propose that we table this until later in the meeting after we walk through this review.
Why not?
Because I don't want to be,
I think we need to.
if we need a decision to be able to have this technology in place by September, which some of us feel is important based on the needs that were presented to us from our administrators of the buildings, then I don't want to delay this. But if the concern
why don't
from
we
you
call
guys,
for a
if
vote?
the concern from you guys is that you don't want to talk about any expenditures until you review the budget,
We don't have to
And this
agree
is our budget.
7-0 on something. Why don't, I think at this point, I'm going to call for a vote on it, because I have a feeling we've got 4 votes for it, and we'll move on. If we don't, then we can talk about tabling it till the next portion, so. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess there still would be. I don't understand. If you're saying that there's so many things that are buried underneath this, and that's going to keep you from voting for this, then why would we not make a second motion now to table this, go through this, and come back and see what, you're saying that there's some scary things hidden in here that we're not aware of yet. So I guess, why would that not make the most sense?
I don't think I used the word scary things that were hidden in here. I said I think there's a lot of stuff out there to talk about
There's
yet
an
that we
implication
haven't yet.
that something's going to jump out and grab us.
Look, this isn't, I mean, we don't need to all agree, and it's not a gotcha game. It's just a matter of, we don't agree, and, I mean, we can talk back and forth. I'm not going to take your position, you're not going to convince me otherwise at this point. I think we've talked about this, we need to have a vote, so at this point, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
You would raise a hand, just so we're sure. And those opposed, nay? Nay. So motion passes 4-3. And at this point, I'll adjourn the meeting, or the special meeting on the technology, and I will call to order the special meeting on the authorization of capital outlay resolution.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Brian.
This, go ahead, sorry, okay. This one is on the capital outlay resolution. We've been talking about this since the legislators passed this. What this allows, and what Greg's talking about, other expenditures to come out of capital outlay next year. It also can be the resolution tonight can either be continuous and permanent, or a combination of 1 to however many years between then and infinity, I guess, the way the legislation is written. It has to be published 2 consecutive days. The earliest we can get it in the newspaper is Thursday of this week. It would be published again Thursday, the 26th. Then there's a 40-day window that would give voters, taxpayers, an opportunity to protest this with, I believe, 10% of the registered voters, and then it would either have to go to election or we just continue with what we're doing. It isn't an increase in the mill levy right now. We're assessing 8 mills. It would be a continuation of that. But for us to take advantage, if we wanted to, the opening up what you can take out of capital outlay, which is things like uniforms, computer software, maintenance. You could take out custodial salaries if you want. And if you look at the capital outlay budget on the very bottom, Tracy has put together some of the things that could be. She included the computer software, repairs of equipment, repairs of vehicles and tires. You can see the custodial salaries of over $1 million we probably wouldn't be able to do, wouldn't recommend we do it. And then upkeep of grounds and streets. If we did everything that she has in that budget, that we would carry over $550,000 next year. And again, some of these things are budgeted high. Our projected carryover, and I'm getting into her business here, but was $828,000 this year. But that, if we do we just did the 178,000, so that would come off of that carryover, correct, Tracy? I want to misspeak on that. So,
Yes, correct.
yeah. So we have a resolution that says continuous and permanent. The board does not have to access any of the 8 mills. It can be 0 to 8 anytime. You could do it, like I said, continuous and permanent, or a combination. Typically, it's a 5-year resolution. The way it used to be would be 5 years, and that's open for discussion.
Well, before we do that, we'll get a motion on the table first, so we get back on track where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Patterson, seconded by Board Member Liker. Now do we have the discussion?
You said we currently do 8 mills?
We currently assess all 8 mills.
For 5 years at a time.
Our resolution would be up in 2015, I believe, so we'd have to do another resolution. If we did nothing with this, the resolution we currently have is up, we'd have to up it for another 5 years or
Yeah,
do this.
2015.
Correct.
Into their capital outlay.
So what changes does this actually create?
Well, you can take other items out of capital outlay, and instead of having to renew it, it would be continuous and permanent. I mean, it would have an opportunity to be protested within the next 40 days of the last publication. But after that, it would be permanent. But again, the board could assess any or all.
But we're doing 8 mills now.
We're doing 8 mills right now, yes.
Kind of the stuff that we're paying for currently from capital outlay. I mean, what's on here for this new resolution that we're not currently paying for out of capital outlay?
The computer software operating system upgrades at the very bottom of that capital outlay pod, those were some of the things that were in a tentative budget that could be repairs of equipment, those types of things. More salaries could be, so,
That's not to say you're proposing these tonight,
no.
but this would give us
It
the
gives
flexibility.
you an option, I mean, so you have some understanding of where we would be with, now, when we do the budget, I mean, we would have to, as we go through, we'll talk about what you want to do, what kind of carryover you would like to see, and those types of things. But, yeah, I'm not saying if you pass the resolution tonight that this is what we're going to take out of there, not at all, but they are options.
This is designed to give you increased flexibility.
Correct.
Between the budgets.
Correct. That was their
intent.
That was their intent.
Right. And from everything I've heard, we could benefit from that flexibility.
It would be much easier to balance the budget if something happened, it just, other avenues to pay for things that usually came out of general fund.
So what is the downside? What are the arguments against this?
It just depends, I mean, I guess, it would be a board decision of mine, I mean, it would be my job on the line, I guess, that if it was spent down to nothing in capital outlay, I mean, for salaries, whatever, and then not enough to do roof repairs, things that break down, those types of things. Can you think of anything else, Tracy? I mean, because it doesn't have to.
Right, and what this would allow flexibility for is, if something would happen and, utilities just skyrocket, well, at the end of the year, we could say, okay, now we're going to take tires, the cost of what we pay for tires out of capital outlays in the general fund. So things like that, it just gives us that flexibility. None of these would have to be taken out of capital outlay, it just would be there if we wanted to.
I mean, my recommendation is that we pass the resolution and, whether it's continuous and permanent, or if you feel more comfortable at a certain number of years, but I think we need to pass a resolution just to give us the flexibility.
And the motion's on the table to approve it until 2015, and extend it to 2015, because I didn't say that.
No,
It's continuous.
It's continuous and permanent, but you can amend that to however many years you want.
Actually, Marty, in fairness, I don't think you said, I think you suggested adopting the resolution. I think that does
Yeah, I was trying
somewhere on here, I saw that, you had that highlighted, maybe it was in the packet. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, it does spell out continuous and permanent, so.
And then there's but you can change that to
You can make a motion to amend if you want.
amend
I
it
would make a
to,
motion to amend it to 5 years.
Do we have a second for that?
Second.
It's been moved by Board Member Patterson, seconded by Board Member Waddell to amend the resolution to, instead of continuous and permanent, to 5 years. Do we have any discussion on the amendment?
I definitely like the option of flexibility. I'm definitely not ready to implement the changes, but I think there's a lot more that we can do on the general fund side in general. Not that it'd be such a poor sentence, but I like the allow flexibility for the future.
it does allow flexibility. That's the biggest thing.
Well, I think the flexibility is nice. I like the amendment. I just think the continuous and permanence, you talk about trust, we have finite terms on the board as ourselves, and I think we as a group, I trust the board here that we wouldn't get carried away with it. I trust that Dean wouldn't get carried away with it, but I think it could easily get carried away with. I would caution that as we look into spending out of capital outlay, that, even now that we can spend software, we can spend on grounds, the way I read that, you couldn't do. But I think what we come to, and kind of has been tabled, is the Facility Needs Committee recommendation that will be coming to us at some point in the near future, I think. There are substantial capital outlay, original capital outlay expenditures we need to make, and, the recommendation, assuming it's still going to be made, is at 900 and some thousand that we have available to budget, it'll take us 100 years to pay that off, which I think we'll have more before we pay that off. But anyway, so I think we just need to be very cautious as we look at those and make sure that we keep that in focus, that if the capital outlet or any bond project doesn't get approved, we've still got all those other expenditures that need to be approved, or need to be repaired, I should say.
Yeah, and there's a long list of things that need to be done, there's no doubt.
You gonna be here for 5 years?
I don't know. Maybe 6 months, is that right?
Well, do you plan on being here for 5 years? Any further discussion on the amendment? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. So now we're back on the original resolution with the amendment. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. And at this time, I will adjourn the notice of special meeting.